Good afternoon, business students. So, article from yesterday's BBC, also available in other publications, about Heineken, who plan to reopen 60 of their pubs and update a load of others as well. So, there's lots in this case study about the community and revitalising, bringing people into shared spaces. And we could think of this as CSR. So I thought we'd use this as a little bit of a revision activity for business ethics. Let's face it, we're probably going to get a question in paper 3 this year with the clothing sector as our research. And I thought we would do beer instead of fast fashion, both of them equally as bad for the environment. So, thinking about this from a definition perspective, we've got our business ethic involves moral principles of business behaviour. I don't know what that means is the problem. So this is the type of definition we tend to see. But when we're thinking about ethics, we're thinking about doing things above and beyond the minimum set in law. And if our customers think that this is moral, so paying above the minimum wage, the living wage in the UK, might be because of market forces. It could be dressed up and marketed as being ethical and hopefully therefore attracting staff that want to work for an ethical employer, when really you're just paying the market rates. So if you see something to do with legislation, that is nothing to do with ethics. You've just got to do it. Anything above ethics could be perceived as ethical behaviour for the less sceptical of us. So if we're thinking about ethics to do with strategic decisions, well, this could be about the long-term planning that we see in making those decisions. We're thinking about the trade-offs between profits and ethics. And remember, this is directly referred to in the theme 3 unit. You need to be able to think about this, but also my advice is to consider this from a temporal perspective. Maybe investing in ethics now will reward dividends in the future. This could be part of a marketing strategy, for example. So clearly the advantages are going to be reputation, trust from all stakeholders, not just customers, all of your stakeholders, and this could be your supply chain as well if you think about it. If you're one of the suppliers for a big supermarket and the supermarket gives you preferential treatment, so pays your bills quickly, which helps small companies. It could be that Tesco's go in and help farmers to improve the yield on their crops. Well, this is good for Tesco's because less waste, more yield equals more crops per hectare, not a farmer clearly, and this could bring down the costs and therefore Tesco's could improve their profitability. But without working with those farmers, maybe they struggle. Don't know. Maybe the farmers are fine on their own. We've got sustainability, and this is a big focus at the moment. So if we're thinking about this sustainability of the business model, and maybe being more ethical in a modern consumer-led market, maybe we're more aware of it because of what we can see on social media, for example. Problem is, it costs money possibly to pay people better wages, improve working conditions. When it says about implementing anything to improve the ethical reputation of a company, you need to think that this could cost money. So that's quite an important thing for you to consider when you are writing your papers. And think about the form of business. Is this a struggling limited company trying to grow? Is this a big corporate, multinational corporation with shareholders who might be demanding short-term return on their investments through dividends or increased share price? Okay, this could be one of those competitive factors, but this is one of those things at the moment that are very, very in vogue. Everyone's doing it, and if everyone's doing it, it's not a differentiator. Think about the early days of Rainforest Alliance coffee and fair trade chocolate. That might have been a USP for about 5 minutes, and then everyone copied it. Now we know that fair trade isn't a huge differentiator for chocolate because a few years ago, a good few years ago actually, Nestle decided to drop fair trade and invent their own. And if you look into the terms and conditions of their own version of fair trade, I couldn't find any direct reference to how much they pay farmers per tonne for their crop. Maybe that was the reason they came up with it. Maybe they thought that customers just expect fair trade, so let's just give them our own version of fair trade, and actually it might not be quite as fair trade. Who am I to judge? If you're trying to balance these ethics and profitability, it might make it more complicated compared to just focusing on something like profit maximization. So, because you're focusing on more than one thing. Okay, it seems a bit obvious, but you could put that into an essay quite easily. And we've got a couple of snapshots from Heineken's website here. And yes, you see a lot of corporations that will do community projects to respect the environment, respect our community, and things like this. In class, we've talked briefly, excuse the cough, we've talked briefly about HSBC and compared the website of HSBC's CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility website for the UK, to that of Hong Kong. And since Hong Kong is in their name, you'd have thought that would be one of their primary markets. Well, Hong Kong's website has actually improved, and the screenshot that I have in my presentation was taken from a few years ago, and then we compare it to a more modern one. A few years ago, CSR was all about trust us, we will invest your money properly so you get a maximum return on investment. It was all about trusting them not to rip you off. Now their website has evolved into a more Western type of CSR, even though it's not as extensive as the UK one. Why should be the question you're asking yourself, and it's probably because customers expect it. And if you do not demonstrate supporting things like CSR in the community, and your competitors do, then maybe they'll go and buy your beer, someone else's beer instead of yours. Okay, we need to remember that this is a beer company, and I'm not sure how ethical beer is, but we'll see. So pay and rewards are part of it, and clearly we would be linking this into motivation theory, but remember not to get lost in the excitement of using motivational theory whenever you see people. So we've got an interesting one here: fair pay, Hertzberg, bonuses, bit of Taylor maybe. Yeah, it could be I get used to this bonus and suddenly I don't get it and then it's not fair, Hertzberg. It could be that I'm comparing to someone else at the coffee machine at work and they're on more money than me, and then we've got disparity between different people that might not like that. And then think about a global supply chain. Is it fair to pay people in the UK more than someone in Bangladesh? You can argue in favour or against that. So yes, motivation, bit of Taylorism there, fair pay, a bit of Hertzberg. So maybe it leads to productivity increases. Maybe this is more concentration when I'm mixing beer up or something to improve the standard of the beer. Staff retention is really important. Remember, it's really expensive to recruit people, just as expensive to train them up. It takes them a while to be good at their jobs, and if you lose them, you've just got to replace them again. It costs you a load of money and you lose all that productivity, possibly. Reputation is, if you are known as an unethical employer, you might not attract some people. Same with, obviously, customers. Okay, that public image is very important. If I'm thinking about two beers and one of them is well known for sweatshop labour, for example, or are we still talking about clothing industry, then maybe I choose a different beer. Costs, well, it's going to cost you more, possibly, in the short term, to pay more money, if this is what is needed. Internal tensions, which is directly linked to this income disparity, and benchmarking across your entire global supply chain is very, very time consuming, costly, and it might be difficult to say what is a fair wage. On to the main event, which is CSR. We've seen a couple of past paper questions on this, and if we're thinking about this voluntary commitment to ethical behaviour, and it's really demonstrating the impact on society, hopefully, but maybe or the environment. So it's quite important for us to understand the true value of this, A, are they doing it just for the reasons that they should? They're a big corporation, they've got lots of money, maybe they should be doing it. Are they allowing their staff to do it? Because this could be one of those motivators, that love and belonging, according to Maslow, of belonging to the wider community and not just work. Or is it just a marketing ploy? Maybe a bit of all of the above on a good day. So the advantages, we've got brand loyalty there. Yes, we can talk about mitigating some of those risks. Maybe if we're involved with reducing global warming, then in the distant future, it might have less of an impact. And clearly engaging with staff. Bring a nice bit of mayo in there about managers being interested in their employees' well-being and engagement, for example. So quite important there again. Disadvantages, again, it's money. And clearly, if I'm focusing on more than one thing, maybe CSR is not directly aligned with the strategic goals of the company at the time. So if the case study talks about CSR and how it's important and external pressures, and then you've just happened to have done a profit analysis on the company, you can see that they're losing money. Well, maybe their strategic goal in the short to medium term is to get back into profitability. Okay, maybe CSR is more of a longer term strategy and might not be important for people that are struggling at the time. Greenwashing is a favourite topic, and this section here that I've taken off the internet yesterday is summarising what EasyJet were doing. They're just paying a company to plant trees. I'm sure it's more complicated than that, but airlines are not carbon neutral. Okay, so yes, they're committed to the environment, so their website says, but when I can jump on a plane for 30 quid and fly to mainland Europe, I understand they've got a business to run, they're a budget airline, but actually that is not good for the planet. When we've got airlines that are shipping clothes from China because it's quicker and they can have more lean production in, again, clothing industry, it's bad for the environment. Okay, so yes, the Advertising Standards Agency will try and clamp down on greenwashing, and they often do if you read the news. However, EasyJet aren't lying. This is what they're doing. At least they're trying to do something, I suppose. So, as always, we should focus on an exam style question. So very quickly, we'll plan this again in a second. We have got our hook of their investment on, it's that normal structure you see in 10 markers, for example. So it's of something on something. And remember, if the aim of the company is not in the question, go to the case study. So the impact of the investment on its CSR profile. Okay, this profile could be with their suppliers, this profile could be with their customers, it could be with their staff, depending what's in the case study. Okay, so we know we need to demonstrate an understanding of that. So the first thing we do before we read the case study, is stick a definition down. Doesn't matter if it's in context or not. If you understand this is beer, then you can drop that in if you want to. More importantly, we want a good definition down so we know what we're going to look for in the case study. So CSR refers to a firm's commitment to ethical behaviour, considering the impacts on its operations, on society and the environment. So guess what I'm looking for in the case study? I then go and read the case study. Here's the case study lifted from BBC's website, not changed at all. I do apologise, but thank you. That's what my licence fee is hopefully for. So what we've got here is a nice, concise case study. You should pause the video. Remember, we're looking for a bit of context to do with investment as well. It seems a bit obvious what we can use. And we're looking for something to do with society and possibly the environment. Pause your video now, go and find the evidence. If you want to write it in 12 minutes quickly before I do a quick walkthrough of mine, you are most welcome. Pause the video. Did you pause the video? Probably not. So, We're looking for some evidence of the investment, so that's in context because it's not mentioned in the case study, it's a bit of application. We know that they are a brewing company and make beer, and we know that they've got their own franchise network of pubs, or maybe they pay managers to work in them. They're renovating over 600 pubs. There's a nice percentage if you wanted. I didn't do that actually. It's a 10 marker. I'm not sure if you need it for this one. There's some great things in this case study, which is why I didn't bother changing it. We may use different evidence in a second from the one that you've done or you've planned. Doesn't matter as long as we're hitting level 4. So, Heineken's investment positively impacts its CSR profile by creating jobs. That links into society, by the way. And that's a bit of context. The £39 million investment, a nice bit of application there, will create over 1,000 jobs. More context. Benefiting, more chains of argument, local communities. By providing employment, Heineken contributes to economic development, supporting families and boosting local economies. Bit of theory there for a nice chain of argument. This links to the CSR, social responsibility aspect of CSR, improving Heineken's reputation as a responsible employer. Okay, so specifically linked into the theory, bit more application, demonstrated an understanding up here. Here's our knowledge, but this is just basic couple of marks. This gives us the foundation to go in and find some stuff here. We've got boosting local economies, which is definitely society. Okay, I've put however into this one because when I was writing this and planning it, I thought both of my points were relatively positive, and I need to make sure I've got howevers in there, because if you do positive point, overall, everything's very positive, you're going to get half marks because you've got no balance. Remember the mark scheme. If in doubt, shove a however down, but manage your time. This should be 12 minutes, including planning, by the way. However, some might argue that the investment prioritised profits over genuine social impact, questioning Heineken's motives. Okay, bit of an interpretation of the case study, but a reasonable counter-argument. Heineken's investment enhances its CSR profile by revitalising community spaces. A bit of society, maybe a bit of environment here, probably a bit more society. The investment focuses on renovating, a nice quote from the case study, so it's obvious we've used it. This enhances the community environment, providing welcoming spaces for social interaction and leisure. So there's an attempt there to link it into environment. We'll let it fly. I'm only a Dalmatian. You can't, expect me to do PhD level answers. We need a counter argument to that one. However, as they intend to focus on premium locals, nice quote from a counter argument, this could exclude some community people. Not very good English. Impacting inclusivity. Okay, back to society as the counter, because if they're only focusing on premium locals, maybe it's because they just want to make more money. Overall, answer the question. We go back, we look for the hook, impact of this on that. Heineken's investment positively impacts CSR. Quite a lot balanced towards the positive here, not a huge amount for the negative. Okay, now we need a justification that considers something that adds value to our argument. Okay, and we need to think, I think maybe something a bit negative actually would be quite nice, get a bit more balance in here. It's not full mark so far. So we need to think about possibly, could we get away with using our shortcut without? Well, I thought we could. Without this investment, well, because it's talking about with the investment, the obvious one is without, Heineken may face criticism for neglecting its community responsibilities, damaging its CSR. Now, I think that that's a bit more of a negative style of comment. So we've got a bit of negative, and a bit more negative, and quite a lot of positive here. It's sort of balanced. Okay, now Obviously, our only question is it level 4? Because we're not aiming for perfection, are we? We want to answer this in 12 minutes and move on to the exciting 12 marker. So here is our level 4 criteria as a bit of a reminder. We do love it. I could have got away with doing a P in favour, yeah, positive impact, possible negative impact, answer the question, justify. It would have been absolutely crystal clear that it was balanced. And in some ways, I think this might have been a better approach. And it would have avoided me accidentally, on purpose, overemphasizing the positives. This is done, this is done. Now over here, yes, we've got something that looks like a slightly longer answer, but it doesn't make it perfectly balanced. Now we don't need wide-ranging arguments like we see in 12 markers. And you ask, why do we not need wide-ranging arguments, Dobby? And I will say, because it's not listed in the Blooming Standards. Okay, we need coherent chains of argument, which is 3 or more-ish. This needs to be contextualized. We need to link it into something to do with behaviour, which I think we've done. Is it balanced? It's sort of balanced. I'm going to put a question mark next to that. And is it well contextualised? You bet your cotton socks it is. Using a bit of quant, well, we've quoted it, we've not really used it, and loads of qualitative and an awareness of competing arguments. I think the justification does it really well with that judgment, because we've said without it, they're a bit stuffed. Now, I would probably give this 8 or 9. You can scream at the screen if you think it needs more or less. If you're one of my students, email me what went wells and EBIs. We can talk about it. Obviously, if you want to tell me it's 10 out of 10, because I'm being a little bit harsh, then I will take that feedback on board. But remember, if I give it 9 and you give it 10, it's staying on my 9. If you give it 8 and I give it 9, it's staying on 9. You know the reason why. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Those of you that want to continue a little bit, because I sort of forgot to put this on here, here are some of the awards for all of their environmental, ethical, and obviously them saying, you know, be drink aware, yeah, as in don't drink too much because it'll kill you. And here's some interesting facts. Alcohol misuse, biggest cause of working age mortality in the UK. Maybe we should all drink a little bit less. And in here, almost half of violent crimes are because people got drunk before they did them. And here's a lovely statistic for you. Lots of violence on people that we don't know, so strangers, is pretty much because of alcohol. Okay? So just say no, Zamo. Everything in moderation. Have a good afternoon.